test, test. So I think we have a quorum.
Darryl, one more round.
I think we have a quorum. Do we have a quorum? Victor. Oh, there he is. Okay. So guys, we're going to get started at 7:02. And David Bills, I'm going to ask if you could open us in prayer, if you wouldn't mind. And I'll let you use that mic. And so let's stand, and we're going to open in prayer, and we're going to get started.
Lord, we just give thanks for the day that we have here, and we give thanks for all the blessings and provision. We pray that you'd continue to guide and direct the leadership, the staff, that we might serve well the citizens of Nampa and the valley here. We pray for wisdom and guidance from you, and we give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so let's do roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Jingula.
Here.
Hills.
Here.
Reynolds. Hammerfield.
Here.
Griffin. 4 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. So we have a full agenda today, and our set is here because we were here yesterday. There's another meeting that needs this set today, and just a little later, so it just helps to stay set in the same configuration. So our first action item is a new alcohol license, and this is the Taqueria, number 2 on 12th Avenue, and this is the former Dickey's Barbecue. So it's wonderful to see a restaurant going in there. That's exciting because we definitely need sit-down restaurants in South Nampa. So this is an action item to approve this new alcohol license on premise and wine and liquor by the drink.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And our restaurant owner is here. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we look forward to you opening.
We look forward to seeing you guys there, too.
Okay. Yes, you need the business.
We're very tired and excited, so.
Good. Well, congratulations, and you do not have to stay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Told me had to, Mayor.
You did? Okay.
Jose, they're keeping me hostage for the next one.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, the next item is, it isn't, we always put action item on here, but it's really a discussion. And Jose, go ahead and head to the front, and we'll have you stand front and center. There you go. We have been working, the former Hispanic Cultural Center, we put together our advisory committee, and there's been a lot of discussion, and so we're talking about the names. And Jose, would you give us just a really quick rundown of where we are with the names? And we just wanted to run it by City Council this morning.
Sure. Where we are right now, we started with the advisory group coming forward with a batch of names that they felt would be appropriate for the center. We ended up landing on, I believe, 48 names, different names. And then through the advisory group and through surveys, we whittled it down to 10, top 10. And then the last survey, which was done recently and concluded, got it down to 1 name that was chosen by the advisory committee. I hesitate a little bit in announcing it only because the advisory group hasn't heard it yet either. So I haven't reached out to them and got them together and given them the results of the survey, and so that we could have it in discussion before we bring it to council for approval. So that is where we're at right now. Is the name actually reflects the community. It also reflects the center. The original purpose, and it kind of keeps it close to where it was before, so there wouldn't be an identity issue with the building, but it's different, which allows us the ability to move forward on branding and developing a plan that would include all community members. So that's where we're at.
And it is being called a Hispanic center again. There was some discussion early on, and I will say, an unfortunate error with the elections office, that they noticed it as an election center, calling it the Nampa Cultural Center.
Yeah, they called it the Nampa Cultural Center.
Which is not the name. So we've asked them to make a correction. It's gone out a little bit. But there was discussion early on, is it Nampa or does it stay Hispanic? And the name is Hispanic in the name again. And as I've really pondered it, I think it needs to continue to be. At first, I questioned, does it need to be more of a Nampa Community Center? But you know what, if we're trying to fulfill the original intent of the building, that was the original intent of the building. That said, and that is the consensus of the entire group, because we had quite a bit of discussion around it. So I just want to make sure there's not a surprise and that we're all under the understanding. But, I thought we have a wonderful opportunity right now because we have a lot of immigration happening, as we all know. We have an opportunity to have a very positive direction or trajectory is what I'm thinking. We've got people that are coming into this country, whether it's legal or not. And for those of you that were at the Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday, we listened to the young gal from the Boys and Girls Club share her story. She won the state, and now she's going to the national regional competition, and it's really good. But her parents were not legals, but she was born here. And so when she's 15, she's now probably 18, I think, there is the possible deportation. It was a horrible thing. They needed to be on a path to citizenship. Hardworking, good family, but it was difficult. And so what I'm seeing is we have had a lot of discussions is how important this location can continue to be. And I will say, Jose is doing such an incredible job. We'll come to probably the next council meeting. But it is a busy, busy place. It is a busy place. It's pretty exciting to see what's happened, and the need is great. So with that, any questions before because it's not an action item, it's just a quick discussion heads up. Any questions, concerns?
So you're not going to disclose the name this morning, then?
Can we write it down?
Yeah. Can you just write it on the back of a piece of paper and...
Well, what I'd like to do is my intent is to make sure that the advisory group, who has actually chosen the group, have a discussion and formally announce it to them before I do that. And so if I do that in a public meeting, well, then we end up having it gets out.
It'll be in the newspaper.
It'll be in the newspaper.
Before they see it. However, it will come back to City Council for approval.
Correct. It will come back.
It will come back for approval.
Yeah, and it really does have, I think it has a great feel to it, and I think that we'll be able to move forward fairly quickly. But yes, that's the plan, and we are meeting as an advisory group on April 25th.
A week from today.
A week from today. So.
Is the word community used in the title or not?
It is.
Thank you. That was my main thought.
Yep, it is.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, so our first two items we've covered, and now we're moving into the discussion section of our agenda. So item 1.3 is a discussion item, and Catherine Keyes has worked quite a bit on creating policies and procedures for our public art and private art in downtown. And so she has a presentation for you, and she's going to walk you through it. And Catherine, thank you for your hard work on this.
You're welcome. I'm going to just queue up my presentation real quick. Okay. Thanks. That was quick. Yeah, I got a little experience in arts and historic preservation with the presentation, so I'm on track. First of all, thank you for the McMuffin. This morning I was promised a McMuffin, so I'm saving that for a little bit later just because there's risks involved, you know, with the tire and digestive risks, so saving that for later. Thank you for being here, Madam Mayor and City Council. I appreciate everything you do, and thank you for your service to our community. And thank you for hearing my presentation today. My name's Catherine Keys, and I'm an analyst for the Economic Development Department. I'm also the staff liaison for Arts and Historic Preservation Commission. And our topic today is to discuss public and private art procedures. Before I get into all the details, I wanted to show a couple of recent public art installations. On the top left, we have our new Dewey Palace mural. Top right, we have a Canyon County Courthouse by Ken McCall. This is a roundabout art piece. And at the very bottom, we have our new Nampa sculpture. And I was wondering if it would be okay, Madam Mayor, if I asked you which was your favorite new public art piece?
Oh, wow. They're so different. It's hard to say which is the favorite because the first one I saw was actually the Dewey mural, which turned out beautiful on the end of that building. They are so different. But the roundabout art items that are on those roundabouts, I love the concept. And this Nampa sign turned out absolutely, if somebody hasn't seen it and with the lights on, it turned out so good. So I can't say that I have a favorite because they're all totally different and appropriate for their locations. So it's pretty exciting to see what's happened.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any of our council people have any favorite public art pieces that were installed recently?
Randy's got such a good eye, so.
He does. He also serves on the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, so
So
would love to hear from
I know better than
you.
to answer that question.
So where's the county courthouse one? Where's that at?
It's in around, oh,
It is a roundabout art piece, Midland, and I'm not sure
I think it's Ustick.
Ustick.
Oh,
Ustick,
that's cool, yeah.
Is way cool.
Yes, they are beautiful. My personal favorite public art installation is the Dewey Palace mural. It is near and dear to my heart because it was my first art project with the City of Nampa and working as the liaison for Arts and Historic. Which brings me to my next slide here. We have this picture of the ribbon cutting event for the Dewey Palace mural. And it's hard to see in this picture because it's all smiles and everyone's so excited for this beautiful mural to be presented. But behind this ribbon cutting, there was a lot of work that went into getting this mural done. And we don't see that in this picture, but this was my first assignment, and there are a lot of pieces that go into a public art installation like this. I had a lot of questions about how to advertise this, what the budget is, how to manage the budget, how do we evaluate the submissions from artists, who should be part of that discussion, where will the mural go, what kind of prep work needs to go to make the wall suitable for that mural, which contracts do we need? And as I searched for a guide, I realized there wasn't one currently for how to manage these projects. And simultaneously, while working on this mural project, our Arts and Historic Preservation Commission was receiving applications from private companies and businesses, and it was pretty clear that we weren't sure how to evaluate those. And so I know this might concern you now, knowing that I wasn't really sure how to manage the project. And maybe you've been in situations where there wasn't a clear guide for you and how to do something. And that's what brings us here today. This is our first step in trying to come up with a guide for this process and to make it suitable for these projects. So the purpose, why we are here today, and the purpose of these procedures is to distinguish two categories of art in the City of Nampa, so public art and private art. The policies and procedures provide a method for the City of Nampa to procure public art, and they provide private businesses, organizations, and individuals guidance and a method to apply for art installations within the City of Nampa that are on or adjacent to public rights-of-way associated with commercial and industrial uses. For the first type of art, we have public art, and the definition is on the right-hand side. It is art commissioned by any City of Nampa department or any organization that is funded in whole or in part with public funding or resources staffing by the City of Nampa. Public art may also include art that is commissioned through a public-private partnership. That is our definition, and on the left-hand side, we have 12 steps that are outlined in our process for procuring public art. So everything from determining our budget and goals, our first approvals, all the way till the end where we get to an art registry, where we have a whole database of all the different art within the City of Nampa, both public and private. The other type of art that we're distinguishing is private art, is what we are calling that type of art, and it is art located on or adjacent to public rights-of-way associated with commercial or industrial uses that is commissioned by a private business, individual, or organization without any funding, staffing, or resources from the City of Nampa. This process is different. It starts with a guidance document from the city for private organizations looking for art. It goes through an art review application. The economic development staff analyzes the application. There's a meeting between the necessary departments to review. There's a rubric provided for us to evaluate these submissions. There's a staff level approval or denial. And then there's also the piece where there's the art registry. So both public and private art are included in this registry where we can publish online and in our new app all the different art pieces in our city. Now this is a little bit different because it did change to where all these applications would go to the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, and it's moving to where it would be a staff level decision and appeals would go to the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission. Next steps for this process. One thing to note at first is that something that we're looking to be a part of the process is having a maintenance fund for public art in the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. And that is really important so that all these beautiful pieces of art that we are investing in, we also continue to invest and protect that investment and make sure we maintain that public art. The draft code has been to the Nampa Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, and they recommended approval on April 8th, 2024. This City Council educational workshop this morning. If City Council and Madam Mayor decide that if the feedback is good and we want to move forward with the code, there might be some additional code changes. There's kind of a ripple effect when you change pieces of code. You have to make sure everything else matches what you've changed in the rest of the code. Also, the Transportation Advisory Group on April 18th and July 23rd. And Planning and Zoning Commission, August 2024, and then it will come back to City Council for action in September 2024. And just coming back to our core values and how what we're doing here and what I'm talking about today fits with our core values as a city. Our integrity, so making sure we have a fair application process, and that we have no violations to businesses or organizations in First Amendment. We have clear code and transparency and consistency across all our departments in the city. There's a fair process for artists, which is really important. Stewardship, we have a streamlined process through this. There's less money spent per project from staff, from legal review. There's efficiency in our processes now. And teamwork, there's a draft code written that any team member can follow, any City of Nampa employee can follow. We're all working to this common goal and using the same code for procuring public art. And then if there are any questions, thank you for your time. And if you have any questions or comments, I'll stand for those.
Catherine, that was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
So beforehand, I'm thinking that we're going to go through policy step by step, and I said we probably need to stay high level because I've not gotten to see your presentations. That was excellent. Thank you. Really appreciate it. David, I think you have a question or comment.
Question, comment, yes. So the comment is, I think consistency on the approval side is going to be key. The other part that I have a little bit of concern is how much we weigh into keeping it respectful and uplifting type of art in our community and not wade too far into the political, cultural side. And so how that gets approved at staff level or the overview. I think what you've shown today, obviously 2 or 3D in their physical build. The Dewey Palace, very, very graphic with the depth, being painted on a flat surface and yet, wants to draw you in. To me, that's great art. And those are the type of pictures that and artwork that we enjoy hanging and seeing. So that's just my general comments, et cetera. That I'm not a fan of how some of the skateboard parks look, and I realize that appeals to a different set of people, et cetera, but I think it takes on, adds a different culture to certain areas of what you're trying to encourage the uplifting of investment. So that's just feedback, my personal opinion on some of that. I realize some of it's great, but. So.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment?
Mayor Twain.
Yes.
So the downtown is awesome when how we have the arts now, but I would like to see it expand and go throughout the whole city. So is that the direction the Arts Commission is going to be going in different points of our, in Nampa, that you can see something like this, southwest, north Nampa?
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez, for the question. We would love to expand into all different areas of Nampa. The roundabout art is one way where that's getting put into different areas, but we would love to do that. And there are some budget constraints because public art is expensive, but we would love to expand into all different areas of Nampa.
Okay, so one thing I'd like to say is, wasn't Lakeview Park, wasn't it a reservoir? Or
Was it like
it was a lake?
Lake Ethel.
Oh, okay. And have a mural with that lake before till now, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to, the different parts of that section history. I think that's just amazing to me, so. And I don't know anything about that lake. I don't know why it went away or what happened. A little history with that.
I'm sure our Arts and Historic Preservation Commission would love to educate on that as well. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would say too that in the past, this body, the City Council, has also reviewed perceived artwork for review. So there's usually an oversight by either body, Arts and Historic Preservation or City Council, depending on where the location is. So it's not all just focused on downtown. And then there is the distinction between signage and art. We've been going over that as well. So, and then it's always an appeal potential back to City Council. So anyway, I think what Catherine's trying to do is help us through a process of determining what is minor cost, what is major cost. Major things obviously go back through your office for review, and if necessary, through city council as well. So I think the intent is to provide oversight and the concerns there, to provide this, a dispersed possibility throughout the whole city of Nampa.
That's wonderful. So Catherine's put a lot of work into the process side of this, which has been really good because now there is a process. But so if Arts and Historic Preservation approves a piece of art, if they deny something, someone could probably appeal it, is what I think I'm hearing you say, Randy, to City Council if it gets denied. What happens if Arts and Historic Preservation approves a piece of art and then you've got City Council members going, oh, wow, well, we really didn't like that?
That's why we were filtering it back to your office.
Through my office, I know. But what happens, because this is not, I mean, when there's a different mayor here, it feels right, you never know. And I so appreciate it because we've had discussions about this, but I'm just thinking if there is, the final authority, it sounds like, is Arts and Historic Preservation.
So there's two different types of art, and so it looks different for either one. So with public art, there is an approval process on step 4, which for the initial project, it goes to the department director and Madam Mayor. So you'll see the initial parameters of the project, and then in step 8, it comes back for the design approval. So there's a selection committee. The selection committee goes to Arts and Historic Preservation for a recommendation. They make that recommendation to the department director and Madam Mayor for public art. So that's the final say there. For private art, it is a staff level review, but there is an appeal process put in place in the draft code. So it's a staff level decision with a rubric and a criteria for that. And then appeals go to Nampa Arts and Historic Preservation. And then I believe it's design review. I don't have the code right in front of me. Planning and zoning, and then city council. So there's a whole appeal process for private art.
So I think what's important is that there's clarity, and I love the fact that you brought our core values into that. Thank you. I think that there should be, and this is at the staff level, that there's clarity on where our focus is. Like in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about the downtown implementation plan, right? And so with that, there's the streetscape standards that we need, that will have to be identified. There's design, right, that needs to be identified because it's been a long time since we've done it. So like with art, if we clearly establish in a collaborative environment what the plan is for art, then it gives staff the direction so they know the direction that we're wanting to go. And I think that's the key piece right here, is that we have some discussions as a city. Who are we? And what do we want to look like? And then that can be shared so that both Arts and Historic Preservation and staff have an idea of what we're really looking for. But that needs to be a collaborative discussion because they're all different types of art, right, that people enjoy and like. And how do you apply it? Like on our electric boxes, for example, because that's art when those get decorated on the sides of buildings and signs and all that stuff. But Councilman Bills.
So I was just curious, 2 pictures that you have below are those somewhere?
Those are private.
That's a private deal on a private building?
Right. And that's
Yes.
where we get into signage versus art. And they came before the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission and got their hands slapped because they went ahead and did it without any approval. So bringing it back in.
Could you, I don't know if we can hear you online. Is your mic on? There we go.
I'm sorry. And I noticed Ron's sitting back here as well and hasn't been
Yes.
introduced, but he's the chairman of the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission. So I'm not sure if he's going to speak or if he just didn't have anything else to do this morning.
But we appreciate you getting up and being here at 7 o'clock in the morning, before 7. Thank you. And we'll see if you'd like to share something.
I don't have anything to share, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Randy, thank you.
Well, I was just going to say, that's where sometimes perceived art and signage overlap, because what they were doing was providing something that was more unique to them and their business. So I think that's where it's important that there is a process. And didn't you say that this is a process that will end up through city council for final approval with the rubrics that you've created for both sides? All of that will be coming back before council. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, so the code revisions will
Right.
come back to city
Plus,
council.
plus the attachments as far as in the policy, correct? Is that
Yes,
correct?
it's all in the packet, and I'm not sure, Christy Watkins normally leads our code revision, so I'm not sure how all of that will be part of the packet. I'm not sure if anyone from planning and zoning could speak to how that's presented, but.
Anyway, council's going to have a final say on it anyway, so
On
even
the
though,
code, but not on the art.
but, no, not on the art, but on the process.
Yeah.
Because it's a value related, and then it's, whether it's going through your office or just staying at the staff level is similar to what is used throughout the city on other things. So anyway, the long and short of it is this council will have a chance to see the full packet with the rubrics that she's created or the charts that go along with it. So Catherine's done a wonderful job of preparing something for your, and I think you've even seen it already, so that we're all moving together in unison with a vision of what the downtown could be. As an example, there was a picture of a bluebird that was in one of the other, that was originally a big raven or crow. It got nuked. We're not going to have a big crow on the side of a building. That's not family friendly. So,
It's a reminder of the days past.
yeah.
It's the nightmare that we don't want to remember, right?
So that's kind of the level of scrutiny that has been provided by the Arts and Historic Preservation in the past. And going forward, you've seen some exhibits of wonderful art, sculptures that we have now available as a part of our community.
Follow-up question, so the cost, what was the cost on doing the Dewey Palace mural?
The overall budget was $20,000. And not all of that went directly to the artist. And there's pieces where we broke down different, like for prep work on the wall to
building
make sure it
prep,
was.
yeah.
But the overall budget was $20,000. And it was a matching grant. So it was $10,000 matching grant, and $10,000 came from donations, and NDC participated in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Catherine, what procedures are going to take place to uphold the integrity of the art so the paint's not chipping and they don't just start kind of looking grungy over time?
That is a great question, Councilwoman Jingula. We are putting in for the budget this year, we are trying to get a maintenance fund for public art in the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget, because we also feel that that is a concern. We've seen things in the past, these beautiful pieces of public art that are deteriorating, and we see that as an issue, and we want to fix that. And so our way of fixing that is proposing a maintenance fund for public art, and you'll see that in the budget cycle this year. And we are hoping that gets approved so we can have funds to maintain these beautiful pieces of public art.
And that will be city funds that you're looking for that?
Yes, that would be city funds.
Can you remind me, how much was that again, that we're putting in the budget?
So
Hoping to get, do you remember?
the latest that I know was $50,000, and from what we talked about, it was a capital fund. And so, or Robin Sellers, I don't know if you want to speak to that in the budget. She knows all the specifics of that.
Yeah.
Good morning, Council, Mayor. We've been working with Doug and with Mayor, and so we'll put in a fund for about $45,000 to be able to maintain art. So roundabout pieces, we have pieces. You'll see the train mural that's above the overpass on 11th. That hasn't been maintained. We didn't build that into the budget. And so unfortunately, we have some art that really does need to be maintained right now. And then we'll know that, like the Dewey mural, it's going to need touch up and it's going to need things as weather hits it. So keeping those public pieces of art, as Catherine said, looking great.
The good news is that that's where we do have funds. Our regular operational budget is going to be ridiculously tight. But our capital fund, we do have the funding available. So when you see that come forward as a request in the capital fund, we will go over the capital fund at this meeting, which is our workshop meeting in June. So it'll be just ahead of when you get your packet. We're going to go over all the capital requests that are going to be coming through, and our 5-year capital improvement plan. We'll go over it in June. Yeah, so that's great.
Catherine, follow up to that. What is the procedure then for private businesses that get approved for this? City's not maintaining those. I'm assuming that's for them to maintain. So how do we uphold that with them?
That is a great question as well, Councilwoman Jingula. So that is a part of the code that we are revising. It is not, we agree upon with the application who is maintaining that art. And so normally, unless there's some different interesting circumstances, it's the private business that is maintaining and responsible for that. We did write into the draft code that we have the ability to intervene if there's if something's deteriorating and not being taken care of, that the city can then take down the art or paint over the art if necessary. Planning and zoning has helped with the code tremendously, and so Christy Watkins and her team, Brianna Sun and Kiana Poach, have all helped really make sure that all those little pieces that we want in there are in that draft code. So there is a piece of code that does give us the ability as a city to intervene in that private art if it is not being taken care of.
Okay, and then last question on that. So I know that we had a city code, and I think we've changed it because we've talked about it, as far as the signs for buildings could be 40% of their surface. I don't know, Rodney could speak to it better, but is there going to be a size requirement for these, or that they can't exceed a certain amount of the space on the side of a building? Because I look at these bottom ones, and no offense to them, it just looks like glorified graffiti to me, and it almost gives me a little anxiety thinking of all of the different things that we could have popping up. I love the idea of history of Nampa, history of Idaho, and just kind of magnifying who we are as a community, but that stresses me out a little bit. So what's going to be the code there as far as size, or what it can be on the side of a building?
Great question. Again, I don't have an answer for that right now. I don't think that's something that we talked about in restricting the size of private art pieces. That is something we can talk about and working and drafting this code if that's something City Council would like us to look at, restricting the size of murals or things like that, if that's the guidance you would like to give us.
Okay, thank you.
I would say that there is a distinction of size for signage. Artwork's different. There's no restriction, just like the Dewey mural is the whole wall.
Right.
But signage is something unique and is regulated.
So my encouragement would be, as things go forward, is to get a real cross-section of people who are serving. Because I know people younger than I, quite younger, would view some stuff, that's really great art. And me being an older individual, I concur with Natalie's assessment. That for me is almost like, is it graffiti or is it intended art?
That didn't come through for approval. It came in after the fact as we did it. What are you going to do to us?
So then begs the question is, which then comes into private property rights, et cetera, but part of it's the sign code, but somebody goes and does that, and then the city says that doesn't meet our standards of community art. I don't know where that lies on getting it changed or not changed if somebody decides to be pretty bold in what they put on their.
And that's in the downtown historic area, and it wasn't done with permission. And in that area, we even have color, right? That there's certain guidelines. And as we go through our downtown implementation plan, that may be an opportunity for us also to be talking about art on our downtown, in our downtown core. with that implementation plan to where we could maybe discuss what we would like to see downtown, and that could be incorporated into that plan, because we do need to redo our streetscape and our color standards, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. So I think that, Rodney, as we move forward with that, I think that's a good opportunity for that in the downtown area. Now, across the city, though, but again, this was not approved, and then it becomes kind of problematic, right? Because then you have to address it, and they have to change it, and it isn't always a positive conversation. It is what it is. But there is a process that is outlined today, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Yeah, good points.
Thank you. Yeah, it is tricky too with private art and First Amendment rights for art. It's tricky, and you don't want to get into a bad situation where you're regulating a speech as well with private art. So it is tricky. It's something we'll look into in the code and what is allowed, what's not. Everything is going through legal to review all of the different code pieces. So we'll make sure we're doing everything correctly.
I just felt back several years ago, the Afghans hanging out of the trees and a few other items hanging out of the trees was took away from the ambiance of downtown and wasn't a good thing. So I don't know if this art type comes in
Are you
or.
talking about people, or are you talking about?
It was wool, and it had to do with a wool festival, I believe, and you saw these knitted areas, you're calling it like an Afghan, right? But it
I'm
was a
sorry,
wool.
knitted
It's
Afghan hanging out of a tree and then
it's a-
something else.
not a-
And then it rain, no, and then it rains and then it's droopy and
Yeah.
dripping and looks like, somebody's tossed their rags up in the trees.
Yeah.
Candidly, that's how I looked at it driving through. I thought it was a downer for the downtown. And I certainly didn't understand until today that somehow was tied to a wool.
I think it was
issue.
the year that we had a wool festival in town, I think if I remember correctly. And it was about sheep and wool, and there were actually sheep that came downtown, and it was all around something. But if you don't know that, and then it stays later, you may not understand it. So, yeah, and that's been a couple of years ago, and I'm vaguely remembering the why behind it, but I know what you're talking about, yes.
I'm sure glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what you were meaning.
I wasn't thinking about people. I was thinking about the blanket from the couch that's overworn and thrown up in the trees, so.
Afghan. Has two.
Yes.
That was good. You almost gave Daddy a heart attack.
Okay.
One last note just on Councilman Bill's concerns as well. One thing that might help with the concerns is knowing that in our evaluation process of private art, one of the categories is looking at whether or not it might become a public nuisance and using that criteria to look at it, the potential to create problems. Yeah.
Great. If there isn't any further discussion, Catherine, you did a really great job. Thank you.
Thank
A lot of
you.
work has gone into this. Thank you. Thank you to Arts and Historic Preservation. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that we have a council member sitting on Arts and Historic Preservation. And Randy, you're there you're not the council liaison. You're actually a member of Arts and Historic. I think as we move forward, it's important that there is a council liaison so that there is the voice and the representation there. But thank you for sitting on it as a member. I really appreciate it.
Mayor?
Yes. You can grab, there.
Just real quickly, I wanted to remind you that we also have Sean Nichols and Jackie who are working to catch things as they start. And then we put a stop order on them now, where we didn't have that before. And they're doing an amazing job of catching things right as they're starting. And we could try to prevent that kind of thing now as it starts, because we have eyes on the ground in the downtown.
Thank you. And then NDC representative and former councilman Darrell Bruner.
Yeah, I'm over. I guess it's on overdue. Just a follow-up question. Does this have any, like, memorials wonderful memorials that people do when there's a death or something of that sort, but then they stay for years and whatever. Is this going to deal with that whatsoever as far as in public places? I mean, we want people to be memorialized and remembered, and for family members, that's part of the grieving process of working through it. But we've had some that stay for years and just the appearance and so on. You just reminded me, Councilman Bill, when you said the Afghan, they just aren't kept up at times. So just a question, if I may. Thanks.
Of course, thank you for the question. I don't think that's been something specific that we've looked at through the code, but thank you for bringing it up. I do think that would be more a part of like the private art. It's not public through the city of Nampa, and we're not. Public streets still. Yes, so it would still be considered private art along like rights of ways, and if it would be commercial or industrial uses. So I think we haven't looked at that yet. It would be something that we'd have to research and assess and get back to you.
Mayor, I can speak to that a little bit as well. So Crystal Craig in Public Works has gone through a approval process for those kinds of memorials, and that's been fairly recent. Those are in the public right-of-way. If they're on private property, we don't have anything right now, but Crystal has put together a process for those and how long they can be out there and maintain them. They have to be out of the travel way and that kind of thing. So there is a process in place.
Mayor, Rodney, this is Crystal. If I can add a little bit more to that, thanks, Rodney, for queuing me up. Mr. Berna, you are correct. We're not considering memorials artwork at this time. The purposes of them are different. One is for, like a memory versus public beautification is almost what I would say. But we do have a policy that was adopted by City Council maybe 6 months ago or so, before I went on maternity leave. So my brain's a little sketchy, so I apologize. It is found on our website. There's a roadside memorial and a parks memorial, depending upon what the public would like. There's application processes. We've got very step-by-step processes on how to get through that, who maintains it, and then what is allowable. But that's all on our city website.
Crystal, thank you. It's the voice that just came from nowhere. But that tells me that Teams is working, because Kim said that Dale Reynolds has been sick this week, and that's why he's not on, but he's having a hard time getting on. And so the link is kicking him off. So do you want to text with Kim, and let's make sure he has thank you, Shar. You can text with Kim and make sure she has the right link, or that he does, for this so he can be on. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Good question. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to step into this next discussion, and we've got, an hour and 10 minutes, Rodney. Doug, you're on instead of Rodney first. Thank you. So, Doug, you and I haven't visited. I'm not sure. Do you want me to give the foundation for why we're talking about this today, or are you going to do that?
Mayor, I have a little bit of a presentation of how we got here, a little bit of the history, and if you'd like to step in, please do so.
I'll let you go for it. And could you pull your microphone up?
Yeah.
That way we can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Council. Doug Critchfield with Planning and Zoning. I'll give, I know that I'd like to have this be more discussion, so I'll try and run through these slides quickly. If you have any questions, please let me know. We started a project, the staff received direction in November of last year to do a downtown implementation plan. And the plan involved Public Works, Economic Development, and the Mayor's Office, and we met on several occasions about that, what that plan should include. Developed a scope of work and a request for proposals that was put out in March, and we received 2 proposals back on March 15th. And then on April 2nd, we convened a selection committee consisting of council, the mayor's office, and staff, taking a look at these proposals and whether that was going to meet the needs of the downtown. During that, so let me just go through the scope of work. So The scope of work that we were asked to put together was a confirmation of the vision for downtown. So we've had several visioning processes for downtown over the years, and so we just wanted to briefly have these consultants confirm that vision, that everybody agreed as to what that should look like. And then the consultants were to provide concepts and visualizations and renderings identifying that scope in the vision. And then a prioritized list of projects downtown with the funding that we have available and moving forward. We also needed some clarification of the organization of downtown and the coordination process that would happen when we have projects coming through. So the deliverables all spoke to that issue, and we also asked them to provide some digital media content for the city's website, so that when we have investors wanting to come into downtown, that they have something that they can look at, and we can show them, say, this is what we're looking for in the downtown area. So as we met on that meeting in April, there were some concerns that came up that perhaps the scope should take a different focus in a different direction and focus more on marketing conditions and trends and what's going to drive investors to the downtown. What would be the return on investment if somebody were to come in and want to take an old downtown building and repurpose that building? What would be the return on investment? And how do we need to engage future investors? So that was a large part of the discussion that we had when we met with this group. And also the proposals that came in were higher than the budget. Our budget was $95,000, and the proposals that came in were $125 and $175. The 175 had, there was some negotiation that we were anticipating as part of that process. So when we looked at them side by side, they were fairly equal. The 175 included a couple of extra services that we could have utilized. And so there was some feeling that there were some duplicative efforts going on for the downtown, and that the vision for downtown, how do we need to address that? There were some questions as to whether the Cushman report provided those details enough to articulate what we needed for downtown. And we also need to know what code changes are going to go along with those. So there was some lack of understanding and clarity amongst the group about whether we were providing duplicative efforts. There's a downtown business owner who offered to do some visualizations and graphics for us, and there was a question as to whether this might be a conflict of interest or not. And then we needed to have a clear capital improvement program for downtown, and we weren't certain that we had enough clarity in that. We also have several planning needs that need to be taken care of as far as this process goes. We talked a little bit about the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, but we just needed to know from the planning side, planners are, we like to think in big picture and future, but we're not always thinking necessarily about the economic development side, because that's really not, that's more in the Economic Development Department's role. And so what we need to know, and I guess what we need to know amongst the discussion with the council today, is what direction do we want to go with this implementation plan? Do we want to focus more on vision, or do we want to focus more on process and bringing investment into downtown? So there's kind of two different approaches that we could take. We do feel from the planning side that we do need to consolidate all of the planning work that's been done into one document, so that people have one source to go to when we're looking to do development downtown. So these are the questions that we have that perhaps this discussion could take. Who should lead this effort? Should this be coming out of economic development? Should this be a combination of department heads? Should this be coming from the mayor's office with the department heads involved? What's the council's will concerning budget? Do we want to, we have a $95,000 budget. If we have proposals come in, is there room to increase that budget, or should we stay within that 95,000? How much should be done by staff versus consultants? And what are the key issues that we want out of this implementation plan? And I think it's important to bring out what the fatal flaws might be in this type of a plan. What would keep this project from moving forward? So that's kind of where we're at right now, Mayor. If there's anything that you would like to add to that?
I would like to ask, Rodney, I'd like us to show today the implementation strategy that Cliff had, and that's why I'd ask about you guys talking, because that was going to go to NDC. And they've seen that. And so we had a collaborative meeting between NDC and City Council, and then the outcome of that meeting, there were 2 different documents that have been presented, and I think they've been given to NDC, but they haven't come back to Council. And so could you pull those up and show them to us? They're part of the NDC packet, I believe, so we can pull up the NDC packet on someone's computer. And because I think this is the confusion. Bree, is she ready? Oh, she can?
She's getting it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bree.
Okay, so I think the confusion, we've got it's been a little bit confusing between NDC and the city and the implementation plan. And I'm going to be really, really candid here. What's difficult is that we did approve and budget for the downtown implementation plan, and we've paused it. One of the elements, and could you go back to the outcome slide that you had? That what we were needing to accomplish out of that's before this one, or after it, right there, primary deliverables, go back to that slide you were just on. A plan document that consolidates the related downtown plans and works, clear implementation strategies, and digital media content. In addition to that, and Rodney, this is something that I don't see what you and I talked about on this sheet, and that was...
I think it's on the previous slide or the next slide.
Let's see where it is.
The project concerns, is that what you...
No, keep going. Right there.
Yeah.
These are,
I don't see the streetscape piece. Is that in there? I don't see it there. So there is some more information that I'm not seeing here today that you and I talked about.
We must have just missed the streetscape plan because that was under downtown core and applicable standards. We have the color oh yeah, there it is. Streetscape plans, architectural features, right in the middle. Identify downtown core and applicable standards.
Okay.
Color palettes.
The color palettes, the streetscape, that right there is not a simple project. That is a complex planning project. But when we get our downtown implementation plan, I think there's several things in it is here, and thank you, I just need to go back and see it, that we really need to decide, right? It is the consolidation of the plans, but it needs to be a joint effort between NDC and the city. And this is just for the downtown. Okay, and then a discussion Rodney and I had to do with, it's been a long time since we've updated even our colors, right? I think we need to come back and revalidate. Is there something, is our color palette, is it where it needs to be? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But that's part of the process, is what are, for today moving forward, those design standards, the streetscape plan, our parking plans. Part of this collaborative effort has to do with our parking plans, because we had a couple of different, we had Keller and Associates working on the closure on First Street, we had Paragon working on 13th Avenue. The goal is that we bring all of this into a single discussion, and we identify and clarify for now moving forward what it is. And so while I agree that in our discussion, it feels like this city, over a long period of time, we've paid for a lot of plans, and then we didn't do anything with them. And we have got to not do that. However, we've got to figure out, how do we get this done, because this is important. And so I think a piece of this is the one that the Cushlands did, and that coming together. We had our initial joint NDC City Council meeting in January. Then there's another document, not the Cushland plan document that has the squares and that, but the second document after that was sent out. I don't know that City Council ever got that. So so that's another document. I don't know if.
Please get it up.
is that the one that had the results of the joint meeting? So I think maybe what I'd like to do is today, let's look at, yes, that is the outcome of the meeting. Let's talk through that, because I think that's important, because this is something we did come together and discuss. And then we've got this next document that is the Consolidated Cushland Plan. And I think I'd like to talk about too today before we're done, how does NDC and the city of Nampa, what is the role that we play collectively on this? Because downtown, right, because this is left hand, right hand within the city, but also within two very important organizations. How do we collaborate? Is it NDC that makes these decisions? And while I think NDC right now has the funding, and why this is incredibly important, is that NDC, as they look to sunsetting in 6 years, those funds, how are they going to utilize the funds? And I think we have a wonderful opportunity as a city to collaborate, because we will own all those improvements later. But the NDC and the sunsetting goes far beyond downtown. It's not just downtown. It goes all the way up. There's Franklin Avenue. I mean, that Franklin exit, the entrance to the city. You've got Treasure Valley Marketplace. There are a lot of areas in that urban renewal district that is sunsetting. This is just a piece of it. And so what NDC is working on, and I believe and should be, is a much broader look at the entire district and what is needed and how to allocate those funds throughout the district. And then where downtown is a piece of that. So does that provide any clarity in today's discussion as far as how we move forward? Because I think there's a few questions. How do we move forward collectively? What do we do with the work that's already there? So Cliff, do you, or Doug, who wants to walk us through? These are the downtown projects that came out of that January meeting. And I don't believe, has City Council seen this document? No. You haven't? Okay, that's why this is important today. Let's look at this document, and then we can go to the next document, and we can go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, this particular presentation here is simply what the process was that City Council went through in the joint meeting with NDC. And as a point of background, in November last fall, we started a process to identify some priority projects for downtown that we could get going on right away, regardless of what happened with the overall large planning process. And NDC had a design committee empowered, and that was made up of Kenton Lee from our NDC commission and from downtown, as well as internal staff. It had Rodney's team on there, as well as Public Works, ourselves, Mitch Minetti from the Chamber of Commerce. We did a strategic planning process where we went through and just did a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats kind of a process, and then outlined from there some potential projects that could be done. And there was a list of 20-some projects that we came up with. And those are the projects that we brought forward to City Council and to NDC in this meeting in January. And Bree, can you advance the slide? So we started with that big list there, and we don't need to go through them all, but I just want to say that this was the list of projects that were brainstormed by that committee and brought forward. And then this is the process that we went through, and this was facilitated by one of our professors from NNU who had led us through the LEAD process. And we went through a process to consider all of those different projects and to see which ones resonated and which ones could we move forward in the process. And we whittled that list down considerably in that process. And then really we divided things up into the categories of quick wins. What can we do right away that didn't require a lot of resources, but things that we could start on right now, regardless of what else is going on. One of those, for example, was we had realized that the code for downtown didn't match with what we had hoped our design vision for downtown. We didn't allow buildings over 3 stories. And so that was an example that came up. That was a quick win project that Rodney's team took on right away, and that's been accomplished with City Council, already. That's just a great example just of a quick win. The bigger projects are some that would require more planning, more time, more effort, but things that we ought to be working on. And then if you look at the two at the bottom here, when we divide it up into this matrix of high impact and the level of effort required, the two at the top, the quick wins and the big projects, are the ones that were identified as having the largest impact for downtown. Obviously, the big projects require more effort than the quick wins. The 2 boxes at the bottom are really where the low-ranking projects ended up. So there was kind of a list of mediocre projects, that didn't receive a ton of support. We called those fill-in projects, and those were great to do if we had time. And then we actually had a category of what we just categorized as thankless tasks, things that took a lot of effort, resulted in minimal impact, and we should just avoid them. Just, save that fight for another day. Those are not things that we should be working on at this point. Long story, in the end, we were left with a list of projects where we, can you go one more on there? So what we agreed to was to take that list of prioritized projects that the council and commission had put together, and to take that back to our committee and build an implementation strategy to bring back to the NDC board for their consideration. And that's the process that we went through. Can you go one more, Bree? This is the list, and I apologize. I didn't know we were going to present today. I would have made copies of all of this for you guys. Here is kind of the final list of projects. The ones at the top are the ones that had the most agreement for being the highest impact projects that we should work on. And so this is a list of projects, only a 50%, in order to make the list, at least 50% of everybody who responded had to consider this as a positive project. The only one that I put on the list at the bottom that didn't make that was establish a recognized historic district, because that was the only project that we had in our framework talking about history that we had discussed in the meeting. But other than that, again, quick wins. Change the code to allow for multi-story buildings. That one is done. Consolidate to a single downtown board. Well, that process is underway, as you know. The next one has to do with destination marketing and what can we do to essentially brand downtown as a special place. Anyway, and we could go down through all the lists there. We took the projects and we go ahead, Bree, and just put them into the framework that the Cushlands had come up with. Basically, after going through a whole lot of public outreach with NDC, with City Council, with the BID, with the Downtown Association and many others, and taking into account the city's annual citizen survey and what we heard from that, and we just laid out those exact same projects back into here. So these projects in here were all developed by the internal committee at NDC and taken forward and prioritized by this body and by the NDC Commission. And where we are is we had intended to, well, we took this back to NDC to ask, really, are we just heading in the right direction here? Are there some things that we can get going on? And in light of kind of the pause that's been placed on the overall plan for downtown, we elected to pause what we're doing here so that you guys could take all of this into consideration. But in general, if I just can give you my 2 cents, NDC's focus is on accomplishing projects. It's not on the overall planning efforts for downtown. It doesn't have anything to do with the design or the big picture things that are so important in the overall plan. That's what Rodney's team is doing. And that's a fantastic effort. And, our staff has been involved with their team from the beginning on that process as well. We're not doing anything that's at odds to that. The simple truth for NDC is we've got 6 years of funding coming in. We can't afford to wait multiple years for the perfect plan to come in before we start doing some things. And there's a lot of things that we could be doing right now while we figure out the bigger, longer term direction for downtown. So.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yep.
So I appreciate your comments. I do feel, I feel it's really important that our plan helps inform NDC on what the appropriate investments are and what the needed investments are. Because if NDC, and this is where I think in these next 6 years, there needs to be, and I appreciate Darrell being here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, and Randy, because you both sit on NDC. If NDC moves forward with projects to get projects done, yet it hasn't been informed by a really strong plan, then I don't know that we would be making the right decisions for long term. And there's some big needs, infrastructure needs, that could be done, right, with those NDC dollars outside of this district and inside this district. And so how do you decide what those are? And to me, the plan is what helps guide at least use of NDC funds within. And I think it's extremely important that we're all on the same page. because the city will take over in 6 years, and what are we going to take over? And so I just think it's really important that we're very linked together on this. We're having good communication. And I tell you what, and this is, David, if you don't mind me saying that you've said this, and if I get it wrong, tell me. I'm going to say, you didn't say this, $10,000, but every $100,000 we spend, it so quickly equals $1 million. And then those dollars are gone. And so every decision we make, whether it's spending $100,000 on a consultant or whatever it is, it adds up very quickly, and then the dollars are gone. And so one of our core values is stewardship, right? That we're really good stewards. I will say with that though, staff is busy. I know the planning and zoning staff, they're very busy. So sometimes there's the need to outsource a piece. And so I think we want to be careful that we just don't bring in another consultant that gives us something that we don't necessarily need, right? We want to be good stewards, but how do we get the work done, and what work has to be done to inform us to make wise decisions as we move forward? And for me, the example was Keller and Associates did some great work on First Street, really good plan. And then you had Paragon over here working on 13th, totally different firm, totally different projects, both in our downtown that intersect at 1st and 13th. But there wasn't, in my opinion, there wasn't good coordination between those two projects. And so we have great work being done, but this is the left hand and the right hand. Different departments, right, but all within the city. And so that's what I don't want to do. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, we're communicating, and I'm going to quit talking. So I'd like to hear from NDC and what your thoughts are as we move forward and how we can help support you and where you're going. Darrell, can you come up and join us, and you and Randy speak to that?
Randy would love to talk about this.
Well, how do we as a city support where NDC is going? Where does this intersect, and what do you see? And then David was in our meeting, and I know, David, you've written a lot of notes and have thoughts, and so let's hear from NDC kind of on what their thoughts are, and then let's come back to see.
Can I go first?
No, I love following you.
Mayor, a long time ago when I coached football, there was an analogy or something I would always say that success is when preparation meets opportunity. So you're prepared, the opportunity presents itself, you can be successful if the preparation is right. I think going forward on anything we do, if you don't have a good game plan, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be focused on the things that matter in that game or the reality of life. So moving forward, I think it's important that plan is one that's done in such a way that it gives us opportunity to focus on the things that really do matter and change. I tried to give help to all the council with a report that I was involved with 35 years ago in Boise. Boise was facing the same thing that we're facing today. Streets weren't, were all different directions. There was downtown single-family residences next to high-rises. I mean, it was a mess. There was a tribal nature of a lot of different associations in the downtown core that had to be brought together with a common vision. That vision was done by a group of people that came into the valley for a short period of time, did a charrette process that we've seen before, and it was through the American Institute of Architects. So those people combined to come up with a combined vision, taking into consideration a lot of information that was put into a document. And I sent that to all the council members. I didn't say that that's the direction we should go here, but that is a clear path that was chosen. Capitol Boulevard was identified as the main connector from the Capitol building to the depot, so that vision of keeping that open was important. So they stair-stepped off the height of the buildings off of Capitol Boulevard. 8th Street was closed off to allow there to be more pedestrian-friendly access, clear into the downtown across Main Street. So that was a part of this concept. The Center on the Grove was a part of that concept. There was a lot of different things that was conceptualized and put on paper, and then that group of people left. So when you hire a consultant to come in to prepare a document, it should combine a lot of the information that's been already provided and gathered over the years. As far as I know, there's at least 3 different downtown visions that have been cast and are sitting on a shelf someplace. One of the firms that I work for worked on one of those. Plan Makers out of Boise was another one that came in and did an analysis of the downtown area to provide some insight. All that to say, it isn't for a lack of opportunity to prepare a document that we can use. It's the ability to come together with a common goal in mind. So when you look at the Nampa Development Corporation and you talk about if they're just the money source, there's limitations on what that money can be used for. When you look at combining what's in the best interest of the taxpayers and the city in general, as you look at that, and then you ask the NDC to fund certain things, kind of a piecemeal approach without that larger vision in mind, it's money that's just being thrown, and then you're redoing it in a different way later on. As we receive at the NDC level requests to purchase downtown property, as an example, that was a failed mindset 15 years ago when the half block was purchased for the idea that's where the library would go, and then it became the pivot block. And so that half block became a high-priced piece of ground that we paid for at the NDC level that we ended up having to flip back to a developer for 1/3 of its value. That's not wise return on investment. So stewardship, you mentioned, is very important. So when we look at the surface parking that the city owns along Front, between Front and First, and there's a lot of interest, there is a developer that wanted us to partner with them to allow them to build on that, which give up that area. But then other areas of downtown that could be developed that needs a parking structure, that opportunity goes away because we gave it to one developer that had that in his vision. So having something that's a little bit more intuitive long-term, I just say it this way. If you look at a Google map and you dial in an address, you get that pinpoint that you're drawn to. And then, so I mean, that tells you an address. And so that's what we've been doing here, in my mind, is looking at just that downtown core and not pulling back away to see the bigger picture of how you get to that downtown core. And that's what I thought the NDC was supposed to be doing as a part of the urban renewal plan, was focusing on Franklin's access onto 11th Avenue North, bringing people into the downtown core. Garrity, the same thing. But what has not transpired is that hasn't been taken care of. So the front door to the downtown isn't there. It's still restricted. People are coming in and it's hard to find that, but once you're there, you appreciate it. So how do we look at that in a bigger picture format? Do we widen the downtown core to go more east to pick up traffic that's coming in off of North Side? Do we focus on the improvements on 11th to 11th off of Franklin? That's a part of the urban renewal plan. We can get in partnership on that with the NDC. So all I'm trying to say is, without lacking someone that has the vision, or without having a document in place that says, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to achieve it, these are the dollars that are available, clock's ticking with the NDC. So it's a bigger picture. There's a lot going on here. When you talk about Keller's plans not coinciding with Paragon, that's what you're talking about, that pedestrian overpass. That's a project unto itself, and nothing's going to ever happen with that other than some documents are going to be prepared and put on a shelf because it can't be funded. Intuitively, there's just different things that, again, I'm going to stop talking. I think it's important that we come together. The NFL is going to be doing a draft here one of these days, and they're going to be drafting important people. A quarterback is an important feature, usually the first draft choices. So I always go back to football terms. What are the best way to handle it from football terms? Because it's an organized effort to create a winning program, and it takes people with the ability to conceptualize a game plan and then implement it to be successful. Preparation, opportunity, success.
I like the way you said that, to create a winning program.
Yep.
Because it takes a lot of different entities, and the teams that win are the teams that function as a team, but it takes an entire program. It's not just even the people on the field, right? It's everybody that makes a difference in preparing, right, for the game, right, to have that winning team. So there's a lot that goes into it. And so I just want to make a quick comment. When we reference, and I brought up Keller and Associates and that work, it isn't that they didn't do great work. We ask them, right? We ask them to do it. But this is where I think it's important for us as a city that we are all on the same, that we have a clear vision, and that we're not flipping back and forth in what we're doing, right? And and that City Council doesn't have this plan coming before City Council for approval, and then this is coming over here for approval, but where did they intersect, and where was the vision overall that got us there? So both Paragon and Keller, they did great work. We love working with them. We appreciate them, right? So I just want to, for me, clarify that, because I don't want any misunderstanding. Thank you for your comments. And then, Darrell, do you have any comments about just where, like NDC and the intersection with the city, and your thoughts?
Let me just ask Randy a couple questions, because you have a long, tremendous history. So what made Boise come together? Who facilitated it? Who initiated it? Who scored the final goal to get it done? Who was the main player, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, the decision was made to utilize a resource that's a national resource, and that's through the American Institute of Architects. It's called a RUDAT study, which is rural urban.
So they brought that somebody from that organization in to facilitate that?
Invite. There were 5 architects that came in from across the country that were urban planners that came in and conceptualized a concept.
And which would have cost lots of money, even back in the day.
No, it didn't. It didn't cost that much.
Okay. So anyway, I guess number one, Mayor, is let's not reinvent the wheel. I realize every municipality is different. Every entryway is different, all that. But I guess the number one question is, even though we make fun of Boise sometimes for different aspects, but is downtown and the outlying area, Boise, is it successful? Do people like it? Do the citizens like it? If yes, then why not follow that type of plan for Nampa? Now, my own personal bias is, I think it's ridiculous to think that Boise people and whatever else are going to come to downtown Nampa. Right. They have their own entity. Our main focus is what's going to bring the 100,000+ people that are living here currently, wanting to come, incentivize them to come to downtown.
Okay, so let me address that question. Yeah. Again, when you look at Boise's plan, and I'm not trying to say we need to follow Boise, but there are some common elements. And one is a focal point. We have a focal point in downtown, which is on 12th, which is the depot. Same thing. If you were to conceptualize that as the Capitol building in Boise, that's a corridor, that's a visual corridor from the population base of Nampa, being able to come in. So as we talk about family friendly, maybe we should be expanding the downtown core idea a little bit more to the west, to widen that out and equalize it. But what Boise did as a part of that plan was to develop the downtown historic districts that we now have. It was concentric. There's 3 different levels. There's on-street parking that's allowed and not have to be off-street for the downtown core. All of that, we have that in place. So we've borrowed some of the ideas already, but not the overall concept. So creating a pedestrian-friendly, maybe that's the 1st Street east-west instead of an 8th Street north-south. But it does create an area of the downtown that's more into the historic area that could be focused on. So I think there's things that we can borrow. That's why I was saying it's not necessary. We don't need to have a RUDAT study, because we've got a lot of good people that can conceptualize things. And what I'm hearing Cliff say, it's planning and zoning's effort maybe to develop and expand that concept, but it's going to take someone with the ability to bring all the people to the table, because right now, like you're saying, you've got urban renewal as a taxing agent and the ability to maybe fund some of these things, but our focus needs to be more on infrastructure improvements, not on buying buildings and tearing them down. because that's not a good investment. But if we partner with the market that's out there, maybe someone comes in and says, you know, I would like to, as a part of our efforts, develop this portion. Will you partner with us, NDC, to build in parking structure? That makes sense. Yeah, we can get behind that, or provide the utilities, or provide maybe the surface improvements. Buying buildings is not something that I think is really good, because you end up paying a lot more and then turning around and giving it back. And so the developer is, instead of them coming in and saying, well, I'll buy that block and then develop it, they'll say, well, we'll wait and see if NDC buys it, and then we'll get it from them for $1 on, 10 cents on the dollar, that sort of
Well,
an
and we
approach.
have developers wanting to invest in downtown, as we know. We may need incentive dollars or partnership dollars from NDC to help get it done. Whether it's building the parking associated with the development, which may be an ask that'll come to NDC. I think that the discussions we've had is that downtown housing is critically important, because you have to have the people that are living downtown, that are spending money in downtown. And so, and then also having good retail opportunities. So you've got to have good shopping opportunities to have people come down, the restaurants, the retail, which we haven't had this space. A discussion that Robin and I've had is putting a focus on recruiting the right businesses downtown. There's been discussion, and I know some people won't like this, but it's like, we do not need another tattoo parlor. We don't need a doggy wash. There are a couple of other comments, and I can't remember them right off the top of my head, of what we don't need downtown. When we've got a lot of bars. We had talked about putting a cap on bars, and I actually worked with Rodney, we brought it before City Council several years ago, and we did not do that. We've got a lot of bars downtown. Our kids, and a few years ago, I asked a number of youth, and they said, we want a place for us to go, that we can go in, but when we have just over 21 destinations, then our families can't come and they can't bring their kids. And we have a very family-oriented community. So how are we going to get from where we are today to where we need to be long-term as a community, where you have good opportunities to go downtown? And then I know what I hear you saying is that you want to make the right investment. We don't want to do what we've done historically, right? If NDC spends money, you want the right investment. I'm going to go back to you and be quiet.
No, I'm just going to say, I think, Colliers is doing a wonderful job. They're investing. And just a couple more comments. Yeah, everyone knows from my history that I'm not a consultant lover, okay? The Kirschners are wonderful people, but I saw, and I'm sure, Cliff, you saw benefit. I didn't personally see a lot of benefit for the dollar on that. We got capable people. I realize, Mayor, what you're saying is totally true. They're overworked, probably underpaid, but we got wonderful individuals here. And if Randy's what he's saying with Boise, if you need to bring in for a reasonable cost, people that architectural or whatever that can do that, fine. But I thought Kenton Lee at the last NDC meeting, and I just questioned him, and I have more questions always than answers. But let's bring in families like that. We want downtown. We want, like you said, Mayor, under 21. We don't need all the 21-year-olds in the police department having to work extra hard at 1 o'clock in the morning on weekends. Get a summer family polling place downtown. Get a winter something polling place. Question those people. What would they see? We know what Caldwell has done, of course, with the ice skating rink and all that kind of thing, and what Boise pulls in with downtown, with all the restaurants, et cetera. But to me, what's family friendly? And ask those people. And then the Rodneys, the Cliffs, all these people here. I mean, you can listen. You listen well, but then put a plan together and come to NDC and say, hey, we need to incentivize this, or we need the dollars to do this. And to me, there's nothing more important than that family structure that Nampa has, and the traditions of values of God, family, and freedom, and just continue that. So anyway, I know that's a general thought, but I'm not one that's going to say spend NDC money for hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring consultants in to do this wide vision that they've seen every other place. And Nampa is a unique place, and we need to always think that it's going to be different than Boise, different than Caldwell even, different than Meridian. We just don't have some of the assets and the finances to do that. So that's my rambling for the day. Anyway. Go.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Okay, yes, Rodney, and then we're going to go to David.
And I just want to say, we're ready to pivot however we need to. We saw a need as a group. We all saw a need to do something with the downtown and clarify what needs to happen in the downtown. We saw lots and lots of developers. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't describe it like that. We saw developers wanting to come to the downtown and struggling with all the different plans and the different streetscape and the downtown plans and guidelines and we just felt like, man, there's so many different documents out there. We need to have one consolidated document for them to know what the city's wish is. And so we moved forward with that concept. We got the approval from the council to go forward with that concept. And we are ready to pivot. We just took the first step. And we will go the direction we receive. And we even had a concept of maybe we need to do a lot of the stuff internally. That might take a little bit longer to do because of staff time that we could contribute to it. But we have the ability to do that. I think we've got some really skilled people ready to move forward with this project. We just need consensus about who's leading this effort, where are we going, and do we have that? Is everybody on board with moving forward with this vision? I say a visionary plan, and I realize that a lot of vision work has already been done. I get that, but I ask people all the time, what does the vision look like? And they have a different answer every time. So I just need clarity for what that vision actually is. We've got it in words. What does it look like? And then we can talk to the consultants the contractors and the developers and say, here's what we're looking for in our downtown.
And thank you for putting it that way, because there's a couple steps in the process, right? And what does it look like? So what is, like for parking, what are our priorities? What is that street? Do you have the bulb out there? Do you not have the bulb out? Do we need X number of trees? Because we have a current plan, and then there was going to be a little shift to the plan, and then we've had definite challenges with paint, right? And what people are painting and following the rules, and are the rules still adequate? Then you've got, so those are really important concepts that we need to address and we need to come back to, revisit, get done. But also even the focus on recruitment downtown, right, in this implementation plan. And that's something that if you're going to be recruiting businesses downtown, that's an interesting thing because we don't own the properties. But we can set a vision for what we need and what we're going after, right? So, okay, so David, you sat in that meeting. And you didn't sit in the meeting, you were there, right? I see you. Comments? Thoughts?
Real quick, Boise started their demolition of buildings in the early 60s, and with the quote to redevelop downtown. It lasted 20 years of knocking down buildings and nothing happened. The reason downtown happened was because the marketplace took an emphasis. It started when John Price brought the shopping mall to Franklin and Cole.
Okay, gotcha.
So when he got Town Square approved by Boise City, who didn't want it, they wanted the downtown mall and all this activity to happen downtown. The marketplace said no for 20 years, almost 30. And if you go back to the early 60s when they first started knocking down buildings. As a part of a term project, Randy's worked on stuff from the architectural side. From the real estate side, one of my term papers in my last areas on the real estate was on downtown Boise. the failure and what took place. So the failure is that planners planned on what would happen without the input of the marketplace. That isn't to deride planning. It isn't to deride that you don't say how do you want to shape things, have codes, etc. The issue is they never talk to the marketplace. So then Boise transpired over the years, and in the last 20 years, residential began to be built in downtown Boise. But nobody from this area that I know of has gone and talked to those investors and those ownerships. What did you experience? How are you doing profit-wise? What's happening? What was the response? What's the demographic of your occupants, your buyers? There's a gentleman who came from outside the area back in the aughts. He wanted to invest in the area, so he bought some property in Nampa, which we helped with the brokerage side. He also went downtown across from the convention center and took a narrow piece of ground, I don't know the exact dimension, and he built a 11, 12-story condominium project. Brought his personal wealth into it, along with, I'm sure, some financing, etc. They had deals writing while it was under design. What was the demand there? What has happened? If we want residential in downtown Nampa, we've got to go to the marketplace and find out who's the demographic who would purchase those units. It does nothing to do a plan and another deal. We can take the 5 plan. I'd like to get the copy of all the summary that you referenced, Cliff, that said, well, here's the summary of all these plans that we've got for downtown. I mean, if you recall in our meeting in February, I think it was, when NDC and council were together, one of the issues was a unknown, could you get above 3 stories? Why do we cap at 3 stories? Well, that was because our fire apparatus couldn't do it. Well, obviously, there's 2 buildings in the city of Nampa built somewhere in the 60s, possibly it was the 70s. I'm just going based on their exterior look, but they're higher than 3 stories. So then the fire department came back and said, no, we now have the apparatus, we can handle going higher. So from my side, there's been plenty of residential projects. Nobody's going to the marketplace and talking to the marketplace and asking and doing the demographic study of who purchased those residential, who's the demographic that would live in downtown Nampa. If they're people that make $40,000 and less, do not expect them to spend $300,000, $500,000 on a condominium unit. There's a financial aspect to it. And we can continue to spend government monies and continue to do studies, et cetera, et cetera. We can have a plan so when somebody shows up, here's our plan. They look at our plan and they leave. The real estate community is talking to people, and there hasn't been that much action. Yes, there's been one party. I get told this week, I sit down and meet with 2 commercial real estate brokers in Nampa. They tell me Terry Ayers is ready to do something. I said, no, that's not what I'm hearing. Well, they're just yada-da. Nobody really knows what the individual will do.
Well,
Other than what he has communicated to various people, and it's been a no. And I was surprised by those comments. And I said, well, if he's ready to move, go write him up. Go get it done then. You know, be the hero that nobody has accomplished. I'm not optimistic on it, just from what I've heard. So from the standpoint of, you know, there's a parking plan, some park, you know, there's no consistency. There's no consistency of retail association. Nobody wants to work with one another, so it's being, you know, bring it to an end, which is what it needs to be. But nobody in this room, candidly, is writing a check and doing anything investment-wise, and yet we're making decisions on what the investment people are going to do. And it, for me, I kind of struggle with it. Downtown Nampa doesn't have a front door. And the only gateway that is currently looks fairly decent is North Side. And NDC could expand and help. Think about some of the dilapidated properties on 2nd and 3rd Street, 3 blocks, within the block area of this City Hall. City Hall has a good presentation. And there's been a few properties that have been remodeled. Some have stayed kind of that residential look, that old downtown look. And then there's others, the paint's failing, the trash is piled up down here on a couple of properties, et cetera. So I agree with Randy from the standpoint of gateway and what's the front door. That's why I made the comment a couple of months ago about, Franklin right now isn't a gateway or a front door. It's a traffic gateway, don't get me wrong. If you want to get here quick.
But it doesn't look it. I'm going to pause this only because, David, we've only got about a few
I
minutes. We've got
understand.
less than 10 minutes. We've got 10 minutes left.
But what I would appreciate is, if you got a consolidated plan, you mentioned it in the conversations, it'd be great to get a copy of it and see what you've consolidated and the information that you've put forward. So in terms of where NDC is going, the final comment, Mayor, the reality is in 6 years when NDC is done, the city of Nampa is going to need to have a plan already put in place to relocate the library. Because the library is not an economic development operation. And that building is designed to handle people on the lower floor. It's got 2 nice conference rooms, et cetera. It could handle either retail, restaurants, and meeting rooms. The upper floor is the same way. It's got a parking garage next to it that can handle people coming. But the occupant right now is not an economic development occupant. And that's tough medicine. That may throw a few people, et cetera, but it's not doing anything for the downtown Nampa economic side.
Mayor, just real quick comment, if we have confidence in callers, the one question I asked Lincoln Haygood at the last NDC meeting was, will people actually want to live residentially in downtown Nampa? He said, absolutely. So, bring on there again, there was no more details given, but if we have confidence in callers or whatever, and then you said go to the marketplace, and they know who's out there, but I say, why? Why do people want to do that? And then get her done at a cost where people can afford it, so.
And we would hope that they would go to the people who have put up the high rises, who have the investment pools to do the work, and start talking to them.
And they already have been. I want to say something. So a lot of discussion has taken place. So I want to be solution-oriented. How do we move forward? So and I agree, so I made some notes. First of all, we need to have the design professionals at the table, we need to have the planners at the table, and we need to have the marketplace at the table. That's what I heard you say marketplace, but we have to have them all, and that's what you were saying. And so as we move forward, we do need to have all the right people at the table. I think that we can pull some of what would have happened with a consultant is that we need to pull those plans back out, and we've got to set down, because just the mission, the vision from the plan that was done, I don't know, it was a long time ago. I don't remember what you call that plan, but that was the early plan, is the same, that vision is as applicable today as it was when it was written then, but we haven't gotten it done. The difference that we do have is that we've had the changeover. We have been a little bit stuck when you don't own the buildings, and we've done everything that we could do as a city to get to where we could do something with our buildings. And talking to Robin, the discussion was, you know what, and Mike Pena would say the same thing, we see vacant buildings, but our vacancy rate was very, very low. We didn't have the buildings because we didn't own them and they weren't ready. That made it very, very difficult to move downtown. So we've had movement in a big section of our buildings just in the last couple of years, just in the last months, 3 months. But then the one building that the old bookstore was in, that one changed hands but has set. But just now, it's moving forward. And that is with the commercial up, retail down, and it is moving forward. And then with the Darrell Cameras properties all changing hands recently, the Terriers property, where there has been a lot of work on that. There is still work on it, and that's a discussion that's taking place. There is active work being done on it. We can't make it happen, but NDC can be ready to support and to figure out what we can do with that developer. That's really important. Because, I mean, I'm a firm believer if we want to make it, and that's a game changer to our downtown. We're going to have to be prepared to partner in some way if they're going to come and invest. It's going to be between $100 and $200 million probably. Am I correct in that? In our downtown core. But that's somebody that has the money to do it, that's willing to do it, but we have to be prepared. Right, and that's going to be an NDC decision, and I hope it's taken seriously. But what I'm hearing is that the marketplace, when they're looking, what do we look like? What are the design standards? What are we looking for? So one of the things, and it was the first or second item on the list, was get consolidated into one organization. We've already ripped the Band-Aid off. We're working on that. So coming in July, and so this is where, yes, what you're saying is true, but I want to be on where are we going. So we will be coming before City Council, I'm thinking in July, the second meeting in July, for a public hearing. That public hearing will bring two options to City Council regarding the Downtown Business Improvement District. Those two options, one will be that we, by ordinance, change the billing from the business to the building, and with a consolidated leadership plan for the BID. Because the city gets to choose per ordinance who actually operates and administers the BID. And so that will come forward to City Council. The other option for that particular meeting will be dissolving the Business Improvement District. So we'll come with an option, we'll have a public hearing. Between now and then, we have a lot of work to do. And so we've got a number of meetings scheduled, but we do need to talk to the building owners, and Robin, you can help me. And Krista, we've got to get building owners in those meetings, but also working with the downtown businesses. So that's a plan. And so we've got a couple big things in process today that are happening today. And so we're going to get there. But as far as the design and looking at that, that's another piece of it that our developers want to know. They do want to know what the organizational structure is for downtown. And they do want to know what some of the design standards. So I think that we can get some meetings scheduled specific to that, have the marketplace present that David's talking about. We got to have the marketplace there. So you've got a comment.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I think that's sounds like a good direction. And I just want to say that I actually agree that a planning process that excludes the public input and also the market input is a flawed process, right? That actually is not planning at all. It's going into a room, making a decision without anybody being a part of that process that needs to be. So I completely agree with that. I think we are ready to move forward with that. That was in the scope of work in the RFP to do that. So we're ready to move forward however we can, but you're right. I think that we're going to need to have somebody help us with some of that design element, and we can handle that.
And Derek Cooper has offered to do that, to be a part with us, and he obviously is involved in our downtown, very familiar, and if we're okay with that, and that would be a question for this body, do you see that as a conflict? Yes, Doug?
Yeah, Mayor, so we have that offer. We also have Ben Levinger, who was one of the proposals, could come in. He's willing to come in. He's working with Middleton right now on their comprehensive plan. He's willing to come in once a month and help us with some scenario planning, specifically with the marketplace in downtown. So maybe we could do some of that coordination as part of these meetings, is bring in some of these calls where we need it. with a relatively modest fee that would be associated with that. And that maybe with the Cooper work and in-house expertise, we can start pulling this together.
So a question I would have for the council. We had 90 or 95,000 already allocated to a consultant, right? And we've decided we're not going to move forward with a consultant. I would like to ask, could we work within that budget, and we'll keep it, I'm sure, considerably lower than that, if we need a facilitator to come in and help guide the discussion, someone that's got experience in it, to help guide the discussion with this meeting that we need to have. And really, we could do our own redact by bringing the right people to the table and working with the expertise in this room. Who needs to be in that room? Who needs to? And I think we could do that. Sometimes it's helpful to have a facilitator that isn't one of us, that has experience in it, facilitate the discussion, bring back the notes, and help us at that next. That's not expensive. The other thing would be using some of that budget, rather than having somebody, trying to get somebody free to squeeze it in their schedule, actually create some design options for us to look at. What does it look like? I think we've already dealt with the height issue. Our vacant building code, that was one of the things we needed to deal with. We've already done that. So I think we need to come back to council with the list of what we said we needed to get done and what has already been done and what's in process. So we could create, and I'm not sure who's going to do that, but let's take that sheet, right, with all this is what we said in that meeting that was a joint meeting. Let's come back and say, okay, this is what department is working on this, and this is what is done. And then let's see what is yet to be done. And just keep good communication back to city council. And then I guess the question is, do we need to come back to city council, because this will definitely slow the process, or would city council authorize this? For example, can we bring in a facilitator to help facilitate this meeting that we need to be having with the design, the planners, and the marketplace? If staff feels like we need it. Maybe we don't. I mean, Doug, you do an excellent job of facilitating these planning meetings. You may have the bandwidth to do it internally, and if we do, that would be great. So
Mayor?
Yes.
Doug, I think you do a great job when you do the presentations. I would encourage trying to keep it in-house.
Okay.
If I was going to encourage expenditure of any money, I think it would be on the appraisal or market study type people who have contacts with the marketplace and can quickly pull the data out of the systems that's in place to say what's been going on in terms of sales of downtown properties, what's been going on in terms of the activity. And so I understand Colliers has been very integral, but sometimes it takes somebody who goes and talks to 5 or 7 commercial brokerage firms, and what are they seeing, what are people paying, what's the opportunity for investment, in addition to looking at just pulling together the stats. I mean, the stats are sitting there every day. The real estate community is looking at the stats of what the market's doing. And so to pull together what's happening in that arena is going to give a great deal of information as a part of what you're putting together. But that's where I would get somebody and say, this is what we need to know, what's happening. There's a firm out there, they publish every week, every month, and it's submitted around to the entire real estate community. Every stat that's going on that tells every residential lot available in the Treasure Valley. Okay. Talks about everything that's going on. There's data there. We got to plug to it.
Yeah. So. Thank you. Natalie,
My
and
30
then Randy.
seconds.
Yeah.
Perfect. Next time we do this, I would like to be a part of that discussion as well, just, if we do this again, but if we can have like big maps so that we can actually physically see it and even just draw on them and just try to get some ideas, because it's so hard to just visualize when we're talking about streets and things like that. So if we can do that, that would be helpful. And then also, I think that when we're building the downtown, we just need to get out of the frame of this affordable housing mentality that we have here. If we build it, they will come. There is so much money. There are a lot of people in this community that have a lot of money. If we build it, they will come. And if we have bigger, more high-quality things down there, then it's going to drive businesses to come down here because now there's a population that can support it. So, I think capitalism will just take its course. I think that recruiting is going to be the last step. I think that we need to build it, make a clear vision, and then developers will want to come in and see it and be a part of it. And I think that that's, for me, that's my mindset.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, just be eyes wide open if you're accepting, I'll call it a Trojan horse design concept that has a hidden agenda behind it. If a developer comes in and offers concepts, as long as it's generic in what's being provided, I think it's great, because that's a visual tool that anybody can use. But if it has an isolated development concept that is integral into the design, it might be based upon a personal agenda. So other than that, I mean, we need to be able to take a step back and say, okay, if we do this, how is that going to affect development here? And that's something I just even brought up to Mike as far as the sale of potential Long Branch Station and development. They're going to need a parking structure, but it's not going to be integral in their development. So we need to be able to aid them, maybe with not giving up surface parking area that would be available to the whole downtown core area for. So that's the type of thing, just be eyes wide open with what you're receiving.
Yeah, thank you. And Robin?
Yeah, Councilwoman Jangula's comment about the maps made me think of the offer from the BID that was requested to have the council come to downtown. And so I wanted to bring that up. And so we had a meeting with the new BID board, well, not new, some of them are new, that they would love to host the council coming downtown this summer to do a walk. Some people spend a lot of time in downtown and others not as much. So that would be a great experience for council with the BID to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I forgot about that. And you know what? That is so important. If we're sitting here talking about downtown implementation plan, and first of all, our downtown businesses have to be involved in the planning. We need to be talking to them because they live it every day. And there's an element and a perspective that comes from them that's just as important. But I think for all of us, we need to do a walking tour downtown, and we need to do it sometime in the next month or so, so that we have the opportunity to actually look at downtown. Because I don't know how often people are downtown that really know what's downtown, what it looks like, what the condition of the sidewalks are. I think that's another discussion that I think needs to be addressed, because with Jim in a wheelchair, my husband, I don't go downtown with him. I can't, because it is not safe. And that's not what our downtown should be, that anybody that is in a wheelchair cannot access our downtown because it's not safe. And our businesses don't have the money to go in and replace all the sidewalks, and it's their responsibility. Some of it happens with new development, but we don't have the whole big new development. And so it's a challenging thing. The BID was formed, and I need to end and quit, back in 1985 to replace sidewalks. They did, and now we've got what we've got. They're broken down, they need to be replaced again, and here we go. So, okay, so it is after 9 and we need to end. This has been a good discussion, a really important, valuable, good discussion, and I just want to say thank you. Darrell, thank you for joining us today. It's important because we need the NDC perspective, plus we need the City Council. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, because the presence of art and historic preservation and the discussion and the thoughts is very important to this. So thank you for taking time, Ron. Appreciate it.
I can drive a golf cart for Randy downtown when that walk. He's not
in. Okay, so with that, our next meeting in May, our next workshop. So council, you have Wednesdays, every Wednesday for the next 7 weeks. And then, yes.
Can we get a summary list of which department is presenting on which day?
Yes.
It would be helpful to know.
Yes. It is in a calendar appointment. There's a calendar appointment that was sent to you, and it's in there, but we will send you an email document that has the order. You should have received a calendar appointment, but it would be in your City Council email on that, but that probably isn't the best. So we'll make sure that you have one sheet in order with the listing of who's presenting. Next time, I believe, is police.
Yeah.
Police code.
For us few ignorant people who don't know the calendar appointment and the scenario on there.
We'll get it right.
Get
Thank you so much for saying that, though. We'll get it done. Okay, so we've got that, and then the May workshop is, we are going to have, I can't remember what the second one is. VRT is one of the presentations. They're going to come present, and that's going to be a very important meeting because it's a budgetary piece. And
Darrell wants to be here for that meeting.
okay, with that, I would stand for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you all.